Hello, hello. What's up? What's up? It is a new day, it is a new week, and it's time to get social. My name is KaVonna, and welcome to the Introvert's Social Hour. Welcome, welcome. This is the Introvert Social Hour, and today it's the new episode. Super fun, super excited to talk about the world of theater and what it looks like behind the scenes, specifically in the audition process. Today, I've brought Kassandra on. Kassandra is a San Diego-based queer actor who has a background in musical theater and dance. They have discovered a love for teaching dance and theater while becoming familiar with San Diego's theater community. Welcome, Kassandra. I'm going to talk about you a lot. I'm so excited to bring you on because I would love to pick your brain about just theater things as a whole. So I'm very excited to
Hi,
talk about this. But welcome.
thank you. Hello.
Yes. Um, as a little like icebreaker question to start us off, can you share a brief like story about a memorable audition moment so far in your career?
So, what started me off was honestly high school choir. Before then,
Mhm.
I didn't know anything about theater. I was only in dance classes. But once I got into choir, we do something called the dessert concert every year where we sell desserts, but at the same time, it's like dancing, singing, acting, like it's just a little piece of some kind of musical. And that year, we were doing In the Heights. And so I decided to audition for the solo in Carnaval del Barrio. And it was like the very
Mm-mm.
beginning. Daniela sings like, hey. And so I was super nervous because I'd never sang in front of more than like two people before.
Yeah.
My older sister and all of her friends were in the advanced choir. So I remember going into it and being like, oh my God, they're all going to hear me sing. And I went in, I did what I did. I sang it to the best of my ability. And I remember 2 days later seeing the post of it saying Cassandra Sanchez, Carnaval del Barrio. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is the moment. And so that was just a really cool experience for me and what kind of started everything when it comes to my love for theater.
Wow. I so I'm curious about that. So what got you to like jump into choir after not really having like sang a lot before? What made you go, okay, I'm gonna just go for it. I'm gonna be in it. I'm gonna sing. What sparked it?
Part of it was because it was a class that I could have with my sister because we're really close.
Mm.
Another part was I didn't want to take any of the other electives.
Okay, fair.
I was like, oh, choir, you're just singing. That seems like an easy A.
Oh, oh. But it's funny how things work out like that though too, right? Because you never
Yeah,
would have thought. And then now, like, I don't know, for me, you're like powerhouse vocal. Like you're up there. Like the notes you hit are wild.
I
So
think
it's meant to be. It's meant to be, for sure.
I will say my choir teacher, he was just an incredible person. He was
Mm.
the best teacher I've had to this day, even with college. So I
Mm.
think he also played a really big part in it.
Yeah, like pushing you to get to the next level.
Yeah.
That's cool. Awesome. I'll share mine. So to be fair, I'll go like the beginnings as well. I don't have choir experience like that, but I do have my experience lies more so in dance. And I would say the first like audition experience I had was in high school in my dance class actually, and we had to do like a audition for we had to make our own piece up and it was a test really, but it was in a way also an audition because I had to go solo dolo. And I think that was a moment where I realized like I was capable of like doing more and I was getting to a point of understanding dance at a certain level. That was my freshman year because I remember my dance teacher had asked me if I wanted to go to the advanced level class, but they were also like a company, so I couldn't do it because it was like after school and I couldn't do after school. But I knew like that was a moment where they were like, wait, like she could do this. And I was like, okay, thanks. But so then I kind of like kept rolling with it and I was in dance for um at least the next few years. But yeah, auditions are not easy. So that's where we're talking about them for sure. Because they get harder as you get older too.
They do.
Yeah. Um, as far as your audition experiences so far, what have been like some really successful moments where you've landed parts, whether it be something as um I wouldn't even say simple, but or smaller, like a singing role for a concert, or like something as like a little bit bigger as landing a role in a musical. Like, what has that looked like for you so far?
Um, I think what I've gotten to do so far is really, really cool. I haven't done too much in terms of theater like I wanted to,
Mhm.
but auditioning is just, it's a rough game. It's a rough game. But I did get to do a few pieces with the La Jolla Playhouse recently for their WOW Festival. And I think that's a really cool experience that I've gotten to have because it was invitation only for the auditions. So it's kind of like you
Um,
have to pick someone, if they like your work, like then you get to audition. So that was an interesting process because before then I'd never been to something like that. And it was really terrifying because I was like, oh, they asked me to be here, so I have to be good.
yeah.
So I think getting those was probably what's I've been like most proud of lately. Um, I've also like I've done a few I've gotten a few pieces here and there for ensembles. I love being an ensemble. Like it's so heartwarming. I think it's such a fun time.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I think that's mainly like where I've been at lately.
Mhm. When it came to like you getting like those invitational auditions, can you explain a little bit more of what that looked like? How you got to the point where you were even invited in the first place? Where did your first step into La Jolla Playhouse happen exactly?
Okay, so the cool thing about the WOW Festival is that they have different states and different countries bring in their own pieces, and it's all seen under the La Jolla Playhouse. So I actually knew a playwright in New York who was submitting a piece for the Playhouse for the WOW Festival. And so she reached out to me from there because she was like, oh, I know you moved to San Diego. Like, it would be really cool if you could do this for me. And I was like, yeah, I would love to. And that's how I ended up reading the script for it. And then by doing that first WOW Festival, I was able to get seen by La Jolla Playhouse staff. And that's when they reached out to me about the last piece I did, which was Walks with Little Amal,
Mhm.
which is like this giant puppet that's super cool.
Mhm.
And so I've been like slowly inserting myself into La Jolla Playhouse just because I know it's a really great company.
Yeah.
Just by like doing little things here and there, not necessarily under them, but just things I know they're going to be present at.
Got it. Okay. Because I know, for example, correct me if I'm wrong, you were a PA? Were you a PA? Or what was your background? You did something for a show.
I have done stage crew for
Stage crew.
SDM.
Okay, stage crew. And then that was all connected through like your pathway. So like you knew somebody from here, they were like, "Hey, we could use assistance here," and then going from there.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. I was talking about like networking is so important. And like I see that more and more as I've gotten into the just the entertainment world in general, not even just theater, like dance. I talked about this with someone I know who's in dance in New York. Like, you have to network because it's usually, oh, I know this person, they work really well with me. I'm gonna pull them for this. Kind of like invitation based in a way, or even if it's not invitation based, even when you're auditioning and you know a person, they know what you're capable of, you know.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not the easiest thing. But I've discovered it's really important. Um, what I know, like, as you are in the San Diego theater scene right now, what does it feel like to kind of be able to participate in those things? Like, be like La Jolla Playhouse is a super big deal. I don't know if it was like for me, like I just being at UC San Diego, I love to just go watch stuff from La Jolla Playhouse and be able to see the pathways of how the La Jolla Playhouse even connects to Broadway has been really cool. What does it feel like to just be able to work in places with people who are experienced, whether it is stage crew or production or writing, etc.
It's really cool. At times terrifying because I'm like, you know so much. I want to know everything you know.
Mhm.
But I've learned like in San Diego, the theater community is really kind and really open. And so I've never had an issue of like feeling feeling like out of place in some way or like or too unexperienced, because if there's ever something like I don't necessarily understand or can't grasp, they're always really quick to like be helpful, um, and like help me try to move on to like better and bigger things. I've had a few experiences with stage managers who like, even though we're just stage crew, they'll be like, oh, let me, like, send me your resume, let me send it to the people I know. San Diego's very good at helping you network since it's a smaller community.
Mm.
It's a lot easier to like know about everyone quickly. So that's really nice about being in a smaller city when it comes to theater.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, because in opposition of that, I'm pretty sure, as you know, because you were in New York for a while, um, everything gets blended real easily. Um, Even though, and I don't know, you tell me, because if for dance, it sometimes does feel like a small world though, because I end up seeing people a lot of the times because dance people end up being in very similar spaces quite often. Um, and people know people who know people, be like, "You know that person? Oh, I know that person as well," even though New York is so large just because there's so many people. But
Mm-hmm.
because of that, it's so oversaturated as well. Um, and it just makes it a little bit more difficult. Like, you really have to stand out, and that doesn't necessarily mean talent. It could also just mean purely, like, personality, and just, like, being talkative and just knowing people. Um but yeah, that sounds nice though. Being able to just be calmer and just, "Hey, this person, I know that person. Resume?"
Yeah, New York requires a bit more of a social, being a social little butterfly.
Yeah, and I don't have that. So that's my struggle right now. It was like, "You gotta network." I was like, "I know, but I also like my home." That's that's where I like to be. Or if I go to a dance class, I like to just be able to focus in my dance class. Um, and I had also said too, like, sometimes it doesn't feel, genuine.
Mhm.
So that's another thing. Like, have I networked before? Yes, but then it's very obvious to me when people network with me just to try to, like, get to know the next person. Um, Versus, like, I would rather, like, have a genuine, like, "Oh, like, we could dance together, maybe, like, eventually be friends," things like that. Like, I honestly like your work. Um, Versus sometimes people come up to me, "Hey, what's your Instagram?" It's like, "It's okay." Like, "Hi, my name is," like, so just things like that. But the struggle of New York City. I love New York, but at the same time, like, the business of it all is a little busy. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Um, as far as your audition process, I am curious. So I let me back up for a bit before I ask this question. I have only had, let's see, one, two official audition experiences in New York in person so far. I tried to do one. I guess I could count that, and but it doesn't 100% count because I didn't get to audition. It was the attempt of an audition. And for my listeners, if you don't understand that, if you're non-union, it's very hard to get into the doors. It's even for if you end up being in equity, you still have to like line up super early to sign up for something. And then also if you work full time, things like that, it's not gonna be the easiest to sign up super early and then try to get into a spot. So it was Hamilton I tried to audition for, and I didn't make the cut for the last people they decided to see. Um so I'm still figuring out what my audition process looks like and my audition routine looks like. I don't really know what that is 100% yet because I'm also just still trying to figure out what the audition process looks like as a whole in New York. Um, but I'm curious, do you have any like audition prep rituals, routines to get your mindset in gear before you audition?
Yeah, so I'm a very big, like, I heavy prep for auditions, perhaps too much. Um,
Hey, always be ready.
Usually, depending on what role I'm going for or what show, I like deep dive research into it. So, like, if I'm doing Sweeney Todd, I'm looking into the time, like the when it was like created, what
Mhm.
it's based on, the cultures, like what the character would be like acting like, what they'd be speaking like. Like, I will deep dive into it and have like a full on Google Doc.
Oh, oh.
So I usually do that, and I like study the characters really well. When it comes to like conserving my voice, I try usually fail, but I try to go no dairy. I usually give in.
Yeah.
I also try to do like no spicy food, drink a lot of throat coat, but I also usually I'm not the best when it comes to actually sticking to the food part of it, but that's what I
Mm.
try to do. And then I usually just try to get some good sleep. I feel like sleeping is incredibly important because
Mhm.
I noticed at the beginning that I would stress out over auditions really bad and I would just like not sleep. I'd be like overthinking it day and night. And I got to a point where I'm like, I'm either gonna get it or I'm not. I've got to be calm about it.
Mhm.
So I usually just try to distract myself. I set aside some time to practice, but if I'm not practicing, like my mind is elsewhere. And I think
Okay.
that's cool.
Okay. So I am curious about that. So like when it comes to practicing for it, and this is me not knowing, so I want to understand because I know sometimes people like know people who could play the piano. And they're like, "Hey, can you practice this with me because um so when they bring it to oh my gosh, what is it called?
Feminist?
No, sorry, the paper, the actual my brain's going blank. Yes,
It
thank you. Sheet music. Yeah. I was like, it's the simplest words. Yeah. So when you bring the sheet music to the audition room, you have to be ready. So do you do you have someone like that, or do you find a track online and just kind of match it up? What do you do for that?
Depending on the piece, if it's complicated, I'll usually try to find a track on YouTube. If
Mhm.
it's so a little more simple, I'm not great at piano, but I usually can at least plunk out the vocal notes so I can at least memorize that.
Mhm.
But I usually go with tracks to get the timing.
Okay, that's good. Okay, because I had always wondered that. I was like, once again, not really a vocalist here, but if I was like, if I ever had to like, because sometimes they're like, "Hey, dancers, bring some sheet music just in case." Then I gotta be prepared. I'm like, I don't got a piano player person. I don't know how to practice that. So okay, so find a piano track, and usually you're good to say. Okay, yeah. This is also good to know because I didn't. So you no dairy. When you do no dairy, what's the background for that? And once again, I just don't know. So like when you do like no dairy, no spicy foods, what is that? What does dairy and spicy foods do that could mess you up in an audition room?
So the dairy and the spicy food, it tends to disrupt your vocal cords
Hmm.
because it like is like the irritation from the spicy food. And then with milk, it's just like the consistency and the like lactose. So I
Um,
usually steer away from it to like open up my vocal cords, breathe, so that they're not kind of like raspy and shaky. Because I've noticed that when I eat spicy food and like drink milk and things like that, my voice gets lower. So it makes it a bit more difficult to like reach high notes because I'm traditionally a soprano.
mhm.
And so I just like I think it was my old roommate who told me like, oh, you shouldn't be drinking milk. You shouldn't be like eating hot Cheetos the night before. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm gonna try this, and it does work. It really does like help clear my voice. So yeah.
Wow. That's good to know. Yeah, I had a feeling I knew like you hear spicy food. I didn't know about dairy, but it does make sense, especially like I feel like I connected to the dots of like when you're sick and they say don't eat dairy because it like heightens up your phlegm and things like that. So that makes sense how it can mess up your vocals. Wow, good to know. Um in regards, so we have the setup for like when you prep. What does it look like to build up that like you talked about a bit of like, okay, you either get it, you don't. But even then, like nerves still exists, right? So like when you go into that room and you step in, what does it look like to build up your confidence, and really set yourself up for success in those audition rooms without getting nervous? Because I know for me, when I had to first sing, at my Mirror Music audition, it was the first time they were like, dancers, you gotta sing something. And I was like, and I knew for a fact I was shaky. I knew for a fact I was shaky the whole time. So what does it look like for you to really just kind of like get into gear when you're there?
I had a really big issue at the beginning with nerves where I failed at auditions because I would get shaky and nervous, especially when you're just standing there. Sorry, my
You're
voice
good.
died. You're just like standing there and there's just this panel of like older people staring you down, and I'm like, That's scary.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I've started doing that does help calm me down is I look over their heads. I don't look at any of
Okay.
them. I look over their heads and I
Okay.
just like stare into the wall. And I honestly, not probably not recommended, but I tend to dissociate a bit when I audition.
Okay.
And it does help calm my nerves, but I think that once you walk in, just like do your greeting, be super bubbly, but like lock in once you're gonna start doing your audition, whether it's like dancing, singing, acting. I just gotta lock in and like not pay attention to who else is in the room. And I've seen that that
Mm.
does help a lot.
Yeah. So when you do that, it seems like the way to do that is just like pretend they're not there in a way. So like looking behind something like that. Okay. Yeah. I could see that being helpful for me because that's what gets me in a dance room audition. Like listen, I feel like I am the worst when it comes to dance auditions because I'm such a little anxious being. Like that gets to me in the room. I forget choreo, or I'm so overwhelmed that I'm not getting the choreo as fast as I should, things like that. And then let me look at you and it's over. So that's a good way to go about it. Because I did like a mock audition once. I did the Broadway Dance Center program and they were I know I messed up. I messed up because I was super nervous and I heard the guy go, "Ooh." I was like, well, and I was messed up the rest of the time. I tried to keep going. I did keep going, but I was like, well, don't think about it. Don't think about it. Don't think about it. I try also not to think when I'm doing it, because what usually happens is my brain is running. I'm like, oh, KaVonna, you just messed up on that. Mind you, I'm still dancing. Oh, KaVonna, you messed up on that. Don't mess up again. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, shut up so we can get this done. So that's good to know to like just kind of try to center in and block out. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. For me, definitely easier said than done, but that's been a partial goal of mine. But a good way to go about it is not needing to look at them to know that
Mhm.
you'll be fine.
The cool thing
Um,
too,
mhm,
look over their heads, it makes it look like you're looking at all of them. So like it's I don't I think it was my second semester theater teacher in college who told me this,
mhm,
but when you look over uh casting panels heads, if they're looking at you, because you're looking over their heads and you're kind of looking in the general area, it
mhm.
looks like you're with them directly, even if you're not. So it's like
Yeah.
anything you can do at the same time.
Okay. So okay, I am curious with that. So I'm thinking, say there's like four people right here. Do you just go center?
Go center.
Okay, and then okay, because I was thinking it depends on for dance. That's harder. But I could see for like you're singing, you're just already there kind of center anyways, and then you're just sticking right in front of you. Okay.
Yeah.
I gotta figure out the method for that in a dance room. When you're moving, just kind of, but you also gotta perform still to the front, but then you're moving around so much. Oh well. For your audition experiences, what have been some challenging ones that didn't go as you planned, and how did you handle that disappointment afterwards?
I remember one time I was auditioning for a piece with San Diego Musical Theater, and I went into it. It's I what show? Oh my gosh, what show was it? I'll remember what show it was in a bit.
Yeah.
Oh, it was in the Heights. It was in the Heights,
Okay.
and they threw in at the dance call something completely unrelated to the show. They had us tapping.
Cool.
I'm not a tap dancer. That is my number one. Like I cannot tap. And so I remember them like they sent in a thing a few days before and they're like, oh, please bring tap shoes so you could blah blah blah, like so you could be ready and all this. And I was like, in
Mm.
the Heights, what is this?
Yeah.
And so I was really confused and I was like, maybe they just want to see like who's able to like move their feet well and like things like that. I was like,
Mhm.
but tap. And I didn't know what how to prepare or like what to do for it because I was like, I'm not gonna learn tap in a week. There's no way.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I just went into it. I started learning the combo and I did my best, but I remember leaving and being like really disappointed and like aggravated with myself because it was like, I feel like I could have done really well in this audition. I
Mhm.
just it just did not work out. And so I was like mad about it. Eventually, like it was nice because I did like talk to some friends about it, and they're like, "Hey, like some people aren't good at some things. Like you can't be great at everything. So like it happens."
Yeah.
So I think that was one of the times where I was like most disappointed because I was like, "Dang, I really wanted to be a part of that, but I couldn't tap."
And also to be fair, I also wouldn't have thought tap for In the Heights. So that's how they got you. I've also heard though for dance sometimes like that's how they but that's interesting though. So did you only do tap or did they give you like a few different choreo options?
We started with a hip hop combo, and then
Okay.
we did in the hip hop. It was like a bit of Latin infusion into it. But
Mhm.
then from there, they did a few cuts. So I made it through that first round. And then they started doing tap, which was the second combo. And from there, they were going to keep the dancers and ask people to come back for the singer and monologue call.
Got
So,
it.
two, but I still don't know why.
Yeah, because I was like I don't know. I'm trying to make it make sense because I've heard one time like Lady Gaga had a audition for her tour way back at some point. And it's Lady Gaga. Like you're probably thinking more like, hip hop, pop, jazz, kind of vibes. And then I was told that they had a ballet section. I can make a little bit more sense because ballet is that center structure to see where that technique and foundation comes from for dancers. Um, so sometimes like I've heard they'll give you like something to throw you off just to see where the stronger dancers lie, but I don't see how tap could necessarily apply to that for In the Heights. Like I understand how ballet could go into that because that shows your technical overall for things. And you never know what she wants in her choreo. Maybe she does want a little ballet piece when she's singing, I don't know, Edge of Glory or something. Who knows? But like it's possible. But tap, I just don't see where that goes in the Heights. But I mean, hey, maybe they just wanted to see footwork.
Yeah, I
That was
think
the
so.
easiest way.
No, there was no tap.
Oh, see, there we go. So, yep, they were just trying to weigh people out and see the footwork. That's okay. I understand. Um, in similar vibes, I don't know. Okay, I have two different ones, and there's the reason why they were two different difficult ones. I auditioned for the Mark Morris Dance Company, so that was my first like conservatory audition. And that beat me up because they taught like that. And as I've said before already, I don't catch choreo very fast. Um, and I was getting ate up. They taught us three different pieces literally in a span of like 30 minutes. And then we had to audition them. And I just fell off and I already knew I was like, I'm getting cut first round. I'm out. That was a wake up call in a sense of like, okay, uh we gotta figure out what this disconnect is of being able to catch choreo quickly, etc. Because I think that was the fastest anyone has ever taught me anything. Like they literally, I think we did it with the music once, and then they're like, okay, like I had never experienced that before. Like we're only gonna do it with the music once with you, and then we just gotta catch it. Alrighty then. Like I was like, I'm lost in the sauce. I don't know what I'm doing. Um, and then the second one was when I did Hamilton, and the reason why it was hard was because it was a mental struggle, and I came to the realization that it is so difficult to like break in because it's so difficult to even get to the audition room in the first place. Especially as a non-union person, um, you have to sit around and wait, in hopes that you'll get called, and then you don't get called, and then you sat around and waited for what? So, but obviously you still need to then be prepared. So then I'm stretching. I've got the choreo down. I've learned the choreo. I've got this all together. And then and nothing comes from it. So then that was really frustrating in the sense of like, what the heck? Like when you have those moments where you're like, am I in the right spot right now? Like, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And so it was definitely one of those where I think I had left work early. I couldn't be there in the morning, but I was still like, I'm gonna try. I'm just gonna go. I could get my name signed up and just see what happens. Um, and I had been there for almost like I was there for almost a total of like 6 hours. with no
Wow.
result out of that. Yeah. I like you can leave and come back, but at that point it's like you can't go to work, you know. Like you can sign your name up and but you need to be ready just in case you can't be too far. And if they call you and you're not there, you lost your timing. So it's just like it's just very interesting. Yeah. But I would say those are the two. One was me actually auditioning and dropping it. Like you would have thought I'd never danced before. And then the other one was, okay, this is what the process is like. So yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard of someone just doing a dance one time with music and that's it.
That's what I'm
That's not.
saying. I was like, you still gotta be professional, but I was like, when you're like, oh my gosh, like you're freaking out, but you gotta be like, okay, okay. Literally, they taught us a few counts. Any questions? No questions? Okay, cool. Keep moving on. All right, let's do it music. All right. Everybody to the side, we're gonna call out your numbers. What? Huh? We're not gonna do it again? That's with me. No. And so they were they were just moving quick. And then someone did ask to do it again. They were like, "You're only gonna do it one more time, and then we're gonna go." It's like, okay. And yeah, it was that is me. Like for me, I know I'm a person like you give me some time, I got you. I could eat up this choreo, but I don't learn quick enough. So then I look like I'm scrambling because I forget, you know? Um, but yeah, that was rough. I'm glad that that was my first like in-person experience though for conservatory because that taught me. I was like, ooh, you better be ready for anything. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was definitely different for sure because I've never experienced that either. Um, mm-mm-mm. For like in the case scenarios of like rejection, right? Um, how has that contributed to your growth as a performer, and what has it looked like to like learn from those lessons and keep pushing forward?
I think at the beginning it definitely did hit a lot harder. Like it was rough. It made me really sad. Like I'd go
Mm,
home, I'd be in bed, like you wouldn't get me out of bed for like a while.
mm,
Um and like the thing with auditioning is like the rejection's unfortunately greater than the the acceptance.
yeah.
It's so much harder to get a role than it is to like for them to just be like, oh, great job, that was all. And hearing
Mhm,
those words, knowing you like didn't get a call back or you get cut, it does. It pains you, man.
mhm,
Um, I think that I've just tried to like kind of take from all of those times and like see like, okay, maybe like this wasn't very strong. Let's work on it. But it still hits to this day. Like it's always gonna hurt. But I've
mhm,
just kind of go past it and like put it in the past and just take what I can from the experience and just keep going. Because if
mhm,
I stay on it for too long, I know it's gonna probably affect the way I think about like my performance and like start giving me like oh you're not good enough, you're never gonna get a role. I'm like
mhm,
that's super bad of me. And I know that's something that happens a lot in especially in like the auditioning community.
mhm,
It eats it eats you up.
mhm.
Mhm.
It does. What was there like a specific moment where you were like, I'm not doing this anymore, like I'm not beating myself down for this anymore? Like what was the turnaround point?
I I think my turnaround point is it's not necessarily that I was like oh, I'm not going to beat myself up anymore, like when it comes to auditions. And because I don't audition as much as I used to, unfortunately. But that's just because I've started to love more like the behind the stage aspect of things.
Mhm,
But there was a moment in college where I just had like a really, really bad audition for one of my like class pieces that I was
mhm,
competing for. And I remember I was in my dorm for like 2 days crying over it because I was so upset that I didn't get it. And I was
mhm,
like, dude, I need to get something or else like because I hadn't been in a show in my college at that point. And I was like, I need to get something so that I can like put it on my resume, build up my resume. And so
mhm.
I started beating myself over self up over it. And my roommate at the time was like, he would come in and he would open the windows and be like, stop being a gremlin, get out of bed. Eventually he just sat with me and he was like, you're not going to get anywhere if this is how you're going to be every time you don't get something. And that's really, really true. And so
Yeah.
that kind of just sparked something in me where I was like, I've just got to go for it. If I don't get it, I don't get it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's so true though. I'm like sitting here thinking because I had a moment like that too where it's so easy to just beat yourself up over something not working out. But I realized too, I don't know if it works the same with you, even for me, when something does work out, just in general, not even in audition spaces, it's like, great, it worked. And then I kind of move on to what's next. And then, but you can easily wallow in what isn't working. Um, for for rejection, I think as a performer, I always tell my students to suit, you have to be okay with it. Not even kind of, you have to be okay with it. Because as you said, like you're gonna get more no's than you do yeses. Um, it's a very concentrated field of work, like whether it's theater, dance, like there's a lot of people aiming for those spots. Um, but I also do think like it's a timing thing as well, which is so interesting. Like it's right for you and you'll know when it's right for you, if that makes sense. I
Yeah,
don't know.
no,
But
it does.
yeah, I don't know. It's a hard one though, because it's like when you especially when you really want something and then it doesn't happen, it's like, okay, well, for me, I've had moments where it's like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah,
It's like, what did I do wrong? Sometimes it's just like it just wasn't for you, and that's okay. Maybe you did fine, but the image that they wanted wasn't exactly what they were looking for that you had. And that's another thing too, because everything's very visual sometimes. Um, some dance things are height required. I can't audition for the Rockettes. I'm too short. So just things like that. Which is fine, but it's what we come into because we love it and we enjoy it. And it's kind of like the um not even sacrifice, but like I guess in a way, yeah, sacrifice we make, like understanding of the ups and downs of it all. Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, but no, I get that. Uh-huh. No, I did it was a virtual submission for the Wiz, and Jaquel Knight gave the most difficult choreo he ever could have. I don't think he'll ever listen to this podcast. Great choreo though, if he is. But I was just like, I was like, this is beautiful choreo. This is what you're giving us first. But so once again, waning out kind of like the people who, maybe don't need to come to the callback. And I was just like, I'm gonna get it. I'm pushing, I'm pushing, I'm pushing. For me, I kept recording, recording, recording. I had rented out an audition room. I'd always keep messing up on a recording. And at this point, I was beating myself up. I was like, I have 20 minutes left in this audition room. I need to get this choreo right. And I need to record this choreo. And it was just like I got home and I remember I got home and I was like crying. I was like, what am I doing? I was like, I didn't get it right. What I recorded today wasn't enough. It wasn't good enough. Um, and yeah, I was like, why am I recording so many times? Da, 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 da. It was a whole thing. But yeah, that's once again the sacrifice. It's a mental challenge too. You're putting yourself in front of people constantly to be judged for your talent. So yeah.
I feel like because of COVID and everything that's like changed because of it too, with all of these virtual auditions, it's at least personally for me, it's so much harder to do them because I'll go back and I'll watch the tape and I'll be like, nope, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. And I like will not want to submit it because I'm just so in my head that like this is garbage. Why did I do this? And
Hmm.
then I'll submit it, but even then I'm still watching it or I'm like going on YouTube and being like, okay, how many views does it have? Have they watched it? And it just makes it so much worse.
Hmm. Yeah. I think for me, what helps with that, I I beat myself up during the process of recording it. Obviously, of course, I look back at it. There's a certain point though where I'm like, it is what it is. Pick the best one, even if it's not what you want, and send it. At least you can say you submitted it.
That's true.
And that's how I go about it at this point because I was doing a lot of virtual submissions before that too, even when I was still in California, just getting into the submission process of, recording things, even if no one even looked at it because they were probably just looking at equity instead, which is fine. But Um, yeah, I keep them. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, mm, I submitted that. It's like, okay, I guess I did, and it is what it is. But at least at least I could say I submitted it. And I
Mhm.
tried, as long as I can say I tried my best, then there's nothing I could go back from. If I didn't, then that's another thing. But yeah, self-awareness there. Um, for that process though, in a sense of what keeps you going, I feel like that's a little different than what keeps you motivated to keep going for your dreams, keep going for that career. So, how do you stay motivated in a career that is very mentally challenging, I would say?
I think I definitely depend on my friends and family a lot. If because they're always there, like, oh, we have an audition coming up, like, how's it going? Like, are you doing this? Like, what song did you pick? And they stay really interested, and it kind of gets me like excited about the audition again, and it gets me wanting to do things. And they're always just there, like, oh, if you get it, like, I'll be front row and doing like this thing. So I'm like, oh, well, now I really want to try hard so you can watch the show. And I
Yeah.
what's kept me going lately, especially, it's like every time I'm gonna do something, if I'm not feeling great about it, I just go and talk to one of them. Especially like
Mhm.
my sister and my like mom and dad, they are huge supporters. So anytime I like question things, I'm like, hey, can you give me a little help here? And they're always
Yeah.
at it. So I think that's what I've like really been holding on to.
Mhm. Yeah. I would say, I love, and I always tell Sabrina this too, I love your family dynamic. Like y'all are just so tight knit. We talk about it all the time, of like how close you and her are. It's just like, oh, that sisterly bond is just like so solid. And I know it's so obvious that y'all are each other's support systems no matter what. Like if Sabrina was going through something, you're there quick and vice versa. And I think it's just like so like beautiful to see. Especially and then like I said, like you said too, it's super important, especially in like these kind of career settings. But I know she has been like your number one supporter for anything that you have decided to do in this path. And I've seen it as a friend on the side as well, just kind of see her support you in those decisions. So it's been really cool. So I'm glad that you have that support system as well.
Yeah, it's really helpful.
Yeah. Um for I want to talk about like the behind the scenes of preparation. So we talked about like, okay, don't eat dairy, no spicy food, those kind of things. But to go a little bit more in depth, what does it look like for you to choose an audition piece, specifically vocally? Um, and then yeah, like how do you go about that first? Because I know I've heard a few different ways. Some people have different ones. They have just general go-tos and they stick with those go-tos. Or do you kind of, I know you said you research based off the show. So then do you change it up based off of the show? Um, and then another option is sometimes people specifically request something. And once again, theater is never the same. Everybody's got something different. So sometimes they're like, we don't want any musical theater songs. And sometimes they're like, we only want pop. And so how do you have them already set and ready to go, or do you always change them up, basically? Is the question.
So I do have a songbook that holds like a good like 25 songs and sheet music in there. And so those
Nice.
are usual go-tos. If it's something kind of general, like just I'm trying to think of an example. If I was going for like carousel, I have my like golden age pieces that I could choose from. Versus if I'm going for something like Hamilton, like I'm gonna pick something more in like the pop area.
Mhm.
But I do typically try to pick a song that shows like a lot of character. Like I can put my own flair to it, and that
Mhm.
also has vocal range and matches the vocal range of the character that I'm trying to get.
Oh, okay.
So I just did Joanna. I was auditioning for Joanna from Sweeney Todd at SDMT, and
Mhm.
that one was hard for me. I could not for the life of me pick a song because
Yeah.
Joanna's not very character heavy, but she's very like vocal heavy because she sings some crazy stuff.
Mhm.
Greenfinch and Lindenberg. insane song.
Yeah.
So for there, I was like, a lot of the soprano songs I have, they're like not ingenue enough because I usually go for like the side characters and things like that. I never really go for the ingenues, and so I
Mm.
used that one. I ended up going with "Glitter and Be Gay." I don't know if you've heard that song. It's a
Is it from a musical?
it is. It's from Candid. It's so good.
Okay.
But yeah, it's "Glitter and Be Gay," and it is a very like bubbly personality song, but it's the music is very dramatic. It's like full
Okay.
opera. And so I was like, this isn't super Joanna, but it shows off enough vocally, and it still shows like, oh, if you need me to act, I can act because it's a very act heavy song.
Mm.
So I ended up going with that piece, and I feel confident about that choice. But I think as long as the piece somewhat relates to what you're trying to go for and like show the director,
Mm.
you're set. It doesn't have to be like a song that you've been singing like every single day for 10 years because sometimes it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to realize that because I was like, okay, here are the 5 songs I sing the best. Always sing these 5 songs at the audition.
Mm.
And I was like, sometimes it's okay to like not know something as well if it
Mhm.
shows what you can do, in my opinion. So that's what I've been trying to do lately when it comes to picking pieces.
Yeah. Interesting. I am curious. I want to throw out some musicals and see like if you have like what would be your song, even if it's just like in the moment of thought. So like it when you've auditioned for In the Heights, what have you usually auditioned with?
I auditioned with Selena, so I did Amor Prohibido.
Uh, Great choice. Yeah. What about Six?
Ooh, six is difficult because it's kind of popish.
Hmm.
Um, I would probably use something from a jukebox musical. So,
Mm,
and Juliet is a good example, like
that's
they
my
because
brain
they
went.
and things like that. I feel like Britney and
Mhm.
Six they kind of mesh well.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else, or like something from Moulin Rouge because that could also work.
Hmm.
Something like a pop energy.
Got it. Yeah. I know I've seen before they usually say no music. That's an example of them saying no musicals. They usually are like give us a pop or R&B song in general. So I've seen people do like or say not necessarily like be in the room with, but like I've seen people say like Beyonce, Ariana Grande, you could probably do Kelly Clarkson, things like that. Um
Yeah, I
yeah.
will say with Ariana Grande pieces.
Mhm.
Um, I forget his name, but she works with a specific composer. It's Jay. Um,
Mhm.
is it Jason something? I'll remember the name. But
Okay.
an unspoken rule where like you don't usually want to take a song that he's composed into the audition room because the piano is so complex and it could easily the accompanist is like seeing it for the first time and trying to play it. There's a
Mhm.
good chance it up because it's so complex and that's just going to throw you off. So
Wow.
yeah, so you want to take in piano pieces that aren't too difficult for the pianist to play.
It's good to know. I see. I would have never even thought about that. Like, wow. I also never considered Ariana's stuff because I'm just like listening to it as a pop girly. I would have never even thought like the piano itself is difficult.
Yeah,
Now I gotta go listen to the piano tracks and get an idea. That's interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. Now that you're saying that, because it's so pop heavy. Do. I could see that. Wow. What about Hamilton?
Hamilton, I think I'd also have to pull. I think you'd also pull out pop for that.
Like jukeboxy as well, kind of vibes. And then I'm gonna give you a super random one.
Okay.
Shucked.
Ooh, I honestly haven't gotten into Shucked too much. I've listened to the music, so I have like general knowledge of what it's like.
Mhm.
But I think that one, I think Shucked really depends on what role you're going for, because I feel like there's a lot of diversity in all of the songs.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true. You do get a lot of country vibes in it. My
do
first instinct, just because that's in of the moment right now, Texas Hold'em by Beyonce.
yeah,
Um, but that's like not even that serious, but it could work. It could work. Um, yeah.
country's really cool to audition with too, because country songs always tell a story.
That's
So
true.
it's really to like add your own twist to them.
Hmm. And it gives you, not automatic necessarily, but easier access to be able to kind of get the acting in gear. Yeah. Um, we talked about like audition moments that worked, audition moments that didn't work, memorable audition moments. Have you had any funny audition moments?
Um, have I?
I know it's like most of the time it's very serious, but I was just curious if you have had any.
I it wasn't necessarily like I was like super like it wasn't like an important audition, but I worked with the community theater when I was in high school for my town, and
Mhm.
I was the choreographer. So it was interesting because I was on the casting panel,
Okay.
and it was funny because it's community theater. So we had people from like the age of 7 to like the age of 40. And so when I went up to like teach the dance combo, I had this little 7 year old that was like popping and locking and doing her thing. She was living her moment. And so I was trying so hard not to laugh because I was like, oh my God, this kid is so cute. And she was like doing her little newsies jumps because we were doing newsies at the time. And she was like leaping in the air, like super excited. And I was like, someone get this kid on the stage. She and I remember getting back into the casting room, and we were just all talking about her for a while. And it turns out that like right before like the audition and everything, she was going around to the girls and being like, "Hey, if you need help, like I can help you stretch," and like doing all of these like really cute things. And we were like,
Mhm.
"Oh, so she's like wonderful to work with."
Mhm.
And then we ended up giving her one of the junior newsy roles, and it was so funny because the first time like I got to meet her and I got to like talk to her about everything and be like, oh, you like you're gonna be doing this and this and this. She literally like jumped in the air, like did like this little like dancey thing, and then she
Mhm.
went, "I'm so cool for this," and walked away. And I was like, I was
Hey.
like, I was like, okay. So like that was just a really funny moment where I was like, you get so much of someone's personality from the audition where like sometimes you just think people are like so fun and you just get
Mhm.
like this energy and you're like, I want to be friends with this person.
Yeah. No, it's true though. That's so funny. I love when kids come in with like an intense amount of confidence. But then they're also like really nice about it though, because there's a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's hilarious because that made me think of we had a talent show for my school. I want to say October, and a homeboy came in just doing the worm, just vibing. And I was like, okay, we can't just do the worm the whole time, but all right. Like, and I love the joy of just like kids just not even thinking about not making it through or not worrying about like, is it gonna work? It's not gonna work. Like they're just vibing and giving them their best.
We just
Um,
have fun.
yeah, they're just having fun. And so I always bring that back to the fact like, yeah, we do this to have fun. So just kind of give that like genuine kid energy back again.
But
Oh,
yeah,
that's fun. That's exciting. Ugh,
yeah,
I love, yeah. Yeah, I hope she's doing well. That's
me
cool.
too. She ended up going into dance after that.
Okay. Yeah. She based off what you just said, it was very much giving like high dancer energy vibes. Yeah. Not necessarily dance moms, but somewhere on that scale. Of just like I don't know, there's a difference. Theater dance is very different from like other dance. Theater dance is
Yeah.
very high energy. So that's the vibe I was catching from that. Um, Last like general question before I start doing closeout questions. I know we talked about family being your support. Have you like gotten like necessarily like direct mentors that you continuously go for support? Like I know you talked about like teachers being your help at some point in time. But now in this stage in your life, like do you have a mentor who you go to for help and support every time or um do you go back to kind of like the friends and connections that you found along the way?
I think at this point, I don't contact him as much as I wish I did, but I do still contact him when I really like need something or like just to like check up. My musical theater teacher when I did my semester in New York, his name was James Ludwig, but we called him Jimmy.
Okay.
He was, man, like he knew what he was doing. He taught us. I don't think I've learned like as much from anyone else as I have from him.
Mhm.
And he was just a really sweet soul. So he ended up giving all of us his contacts and we could communicate with him later. And through him, I actually got to do a summer internship with the York Theater in New York. I don't know if you've heard
Mhm.
of them. It's a Broadway company.
No, I haven't, but now I'll look it up.
They do a lot of cute little shows, and it's in Times Square, I believe.
Okay.
Um, I did that with them, and so it was a cool experience because I also got to get other mentors through that program because it was a songwriting program. So I got to pair up a Broadway songwriter, and we got to make a song between the two of us, and I sang it and performed it at the end.
Mhm.
And so I also still keep in contact with the writer I was paired with. So that's a really cool connection that I got. And Jimmy's just great because if I ever need something or have questions about like equity cards or like auditioning and doing all of that kind of stuff, he's always there. He always answers really fast. He
That's
also able to get me to do the Oscar and Hammerstein gala once, and that
mm,
was a super experience because I got to meet like Norm Lewis and like Sierra Bogues and all of them, and it was just
yeah.
and Blues his
Mhm.
the what's his Josh something, and
Yeah.
so he he's been like my core person when it comes to networking because he
Mm,
already knows some. He's so excited to get his students to like meet all of these people. It brings
yeah.
him. He he really is like an incredible guy.
Oh. See, that's cool. I like that because I feel like sometimes too, like it could feel when you go to college, you take a class, you're like, okay, cool, thanks. And then, that's kind of it, unless like the mentors find their specific teachers at the time find their specific people that they go to. But I love that he's completely open just for like anyone to reach out. Um, Once again, also I went to UC San Diego, so things are very like cut down a little bit more. The dance world, um, it could be a bit broader at UC San Diego, but they knew the struggles with that. The dance program was having their own struggles, but that's cool. Shout out to Jimmy. First off, I just want to say that because yeah, not many people
Also,
do that. Yeah. Um, Last thing, I do want to know, what advice do you have for aspiring performers that are facing auditions, and constantly facing auditions or none at all?
I think I'd personally just say keep finding joy in it. As long as you find some joy in it and you're having fun and doing what you love, you won't get tired of it. Even if you get a lot of no's, like just keep trying, find something else to fixate on for a little bit. But as long as you're still loving doing it, you're chilling. Like that's the most important part because no one's gonna hire someone who like looks miserable doing their audition. Like as long as you're having fun, I think it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think actually yeah, I think that would be my answer too, quite honestly. I think I 100% agree with that. That's something I tell myself all the time still today too. Even in not even audition processes, but if I'm struggling in a dance class, like just have fun with it. The footwork's different, the body um dynamics are different than what you're used to. Just have fun, and that displays it a lot. I think that kind of what I will add to that is that's what saves you. If you don't have the technical, you look joyful, you have character, that can make up for it as
Oh yeah.
well in those audition rooms. So yeah. Oh, well, thank you, Cassandra, for coming on. I Auditions are not easy, so I love that we got to talk about it. I hope to see more in the future, and maybe we can have an update in the future, and then you're like, hey, listen, I'm on here now. That'd be cool. And talk about like audition successes. And we're auditioning for the rest of our lives at this point.
Yeah, we
Um,
are. But
but yeah, it's what we got into. But it's exciting as well as stressful at the same time, and I love that we're figuring it out. Um, Thank you once again for joining. Thank you, listeners, for listening to the Introvert Social Hour. Share, like, and follow this podcast. Send it to a friend, a family member, a loved one. Follow me at KaVonna on Instagram and at the Introvert Social Hour on TikTok to get podcast updates. Um, you want me to drop your Insta? I got your
Uh,
Insta.
yeah, sure.
Okay. Follow at KAnnSanchez125 to follow Kassandra on Instagram. See what they're doing. They're gonna be in a show one day. I just know it. It's happening. I promise you. I believe in you so much. So it's so just stay up to date on what is coming next for them. Get some sunshine, get some air, have an amazing, amazing week. I will see you next week on the Introvert Social Hour. Thanks for joining. Bye.